Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Thursday, the 19th of June, 2025. I'm Graham Hughes, and you're watching Morning Brew on Politics Social. Hello, how are you all doing this morning? We've got Anne Phillips in the chat, we've got Martin, we've got Simon, we've got Shropshire Chris, we've got Plum Duff and Diz, Rather and Caffey, Veg Pie, we've got David Rado, we've got Paul Ewan in there, we've got, who else have we got? Saz is in there. Hello, Saz. Hello, we've got SG, we've got L. How are you all doing? How are you all doing this morning? Let me know in the chat. If you'd like to join our friends in the chat, and we're all friends here, just hit the subscribe button. Wait for a minute. Don't be a troll. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about life after America. There was something interesting that a Chinese diplomat said on Channel 4 News the other week, where he was asked about America and Trump and all the shit that's going down. And he basically said, well, you know, China's been around for, he said something like 5,000 years. I think that's a bit of an exaggeration, but let's just say 2,000 years. China's been around for 2,000 years and America's been around for 250. And China got on just fine without America in the past, and it'll get on without America in the future. And I sort of watched this and I was like, it's kind of got a point, you know? Empires fall. There's one thing that us historians will tell you, people who've actually studied history. Empires fall. They fall all the freaking time. Like every empire that's ever existed up to this point has at some point fallen. Except for the ones that haven't fallen yet. And so it's no surprise. The Soviet Union, the Soviet Empire, that fell. The British Empire is gone. The French Empire has gone under Napoleon declared himself the emperor. You know, the Roman Empire fell, the Greek Empire fell, the Persian Empire fell. You know, the Mali Empire, the Benin Empire, the Empire of Gondar. Like these things were there, and then one day they just weren't. They were attacked from without or destroyed from within. You know, for various reasons, usually to do with climate change and egos. having some kind of nutter in charge doesn't help. So Trump has left the G7 early this week to deal with the Middle East, which I think comprised of him tweeting to Iran that they needed to unconditionally surrender. I don't know to who or how that would work. Like, what do they? Could someone explain how that unconditional surrender works? It was a bit odd. And Israel last week obviously started bombing the shit out of Iran just before IAEA inspections were about to start again. Very suspicious timing. And Iran has responded with missile and drone strikes. We saw this morning that a hospital's been hit with 30 injuries in Israel, which is terrible. But also, I mean, Israel's hit a lot of hospitals in Gaza and gone, oh, sorry, they're in the way. You see what happens when you start making excuses like that for bombing hospitals and saying, well, they're in the way. So Iran's hit back this morning and said, oh, well, actually, we weren't aiming for the hospital. We were aiming for the military thing. Military building nearby, and you know it was just the blast wave or something. I don't know. It was a mistake, yeah. But you know, you shouldn't be using hospitals as human shields against military targets. You see what happens when you start making these excuses when you're doing it? Yeah, someone might do it to you, and then you don't really have a leg to stand on. So then. We've got Zelensky. He went all the way to Canada. It's a bit of a trip, you know, from Ukraine, where he's fighting a war. And he was supposed to have a meeting with Trump. He was going to offer $500 million, $500 million, to just buy stuff, to buy some hardware, instead of waiting for America to bestow the hardware that they're supposed to have delivered already. It's just a look, we've got the money. Here's the money. We want to buy some weapons off you. But Trump, the art of the deal, man, he decided he needed to go back to the White House to tweet shit about what's happening in the Middle East. Like, we can do that. I can do that. I could do that from Canada. They have the internet there and everything. It's amazing. Amazing place. Internet. And Yeah, so Zelensky was effectively ignored at the G7. No new deal with America for some arms. This has emboldened Putin. And President Xi, or Chairman Xi, or General Secretary Xi, I don't know what his full title is, the leader of Japan, the leader of China, Xi Jinping, he's issued concern. He's actually spoken about the Iran-Israel conflict, but they seem to be quietly, waiting in the wings to fill the vacuum. So here's the question that I want to talk about this morning. What happens if the world stops orbiting around the United States of America? Is that collapse coming? And would it really be the end of the world? Or would it actually be a bit of a relief? I know it's very easy to say, oh, God, yeah, bloody Americans would be better off without them. But we need to dig into what a world without America would genuinely look like. So first of all, let's have a look at what's breaking the US hegemony. Like, what is it? Well, first of all, Trump's erratic foreign policy. He tore up the Iran nuclear deal in his first term because Obama made it. He's withdrawn from key international institutions such as the World Health Organization. They've pulled out the climate change agreement, the Paris Climate Accords, which are just advice. I mean, they're not compulsory. You don't have to do it. They pulled out of it anyway. He's been undermining NATO at every opportunity. He's been praising Putin. He's been attacking his allies, Canada, Panama, Greenland, which means Denmark. At least two of those three countries I just mentioned are in NATO, and he's claiming they're his enemies. He's got troops on the streets of America, troops that should be defending America from foreign invading armies and terrorists who mean America harm, and he's got the military attacking civilians on the streets, patrolling for civilians and making sure they don't get out of line, which is a job supposed to be done by the police who have got the training to deal with civilians in America. But now you've got a whole generation of Americans who are going to growing up seeing the military as their enemy because the military are the people pointing guns at them on the street. Anne Phillips, thank you very much. Repeat after me. Zelensky. Says Anne. Zelensky. Zelensky. Zelensky? Zelen. Do I have to shout the middle one? Is that Zelensky? I always thought it was ski, but never mind. Thank you very much, Anne, for the £2 super chat. And Umka, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. America will have no arms soon, no rare earth metals, no science, no skilled workers, but they will have AI to generate patriotic propaganda. Well, yeah, Umka, I don't think you're wrong. They're digging a massive fucking hole for themselves. You've identified a few things in there that they are going to suffer with. When you say no rare earth materials, they do. They do. They've got quite a lot, actually. There's lots of lithium. There's lots of lithium in America. But it's really hard to get to. And the big problem that they're having is that lithium extraction requires a lot of water. And where the lithium is like miles and miles away from any kind of watercourse, river, pond, lake, Oxbow Lake. And America is pushing climate change like a bunch of lunatics. And as the Boulder River, the Colorado River dry up, there's less water to go around. So that there is rare earth materials in America that they just probably won't be able to get it out. They won't be able to have the water to do it, all the logistics to do it. I mean, you're talking about a country that has a train service that is, oh my God, like the most Wild West thing you can think of. It is absolutely awful. Amtrak, which is the state-run company, the United States-run company that run passenger trains, is like dreadful in comparison with what we've got in Europe. Like it's night and day. There isn't any passenger station in the entire state of Wyoming. I looked into this after I finished visiting every country in the world. one of my next trips that I wanted to do is visiting every state in America without flying, and possibly every province in Canada. So the plan was start in Hawaii, get on a ship, go to Alaska, and then travel across into Canada, do all the 17, I think, provinces of Canada. Probably the wrong number there. I'm going to get shouted at now by people from Canada going, it's not 17, you dickhead. And then go to the 50 states of America without flying. It will be quite fun as well to go to the Puerto Rico and US Virgin Islands and then somehow magically get back over to get over to the Northern Mariana Islands, Guam, and American Samoa. I don't think that's very likely, but yeah. So I looked into getting around America without flying, and one of the things you might know about me if you've read my book is I hate the Greyhound buses in America because they're fucking awful. So I was thinking, you could get around on the train. Surely you can get around America on the train. The infrastructure in America is crumbling. I don't know if anyone here has driven around New York City. I've driven around New York City, right, in a car, right, that I hired. And you've got sort of the big avenues, that the famous avenues. But once you get off them, once you turn a corner, it is pothole central. It's like driving down the driveway of an old abandoned farm around here in Durham, and I'm in New York City. Because the logistics just isn't there. They're not the logistics. The infrastructure, the bridges are crumbling. The tunnels are collapsing. They've got. It's not great. And when America should be investing in its own country, it hasn't been. It's been investing in making billionaires even richer. They invest in rich people. They don't invest in everybody else. Meanwhile, China and Europe have been investing massively in their own people. They've been investing in infrastructure. They've been investing in public transport. They've been investing in making things better. In America, they can't even build a high-speed line between LA and San Francisco. And I wouldn't mind, but I know HS2 was a nightmare here because we had the Tories in charge and they didn't want to do it, and it was all backhanders and jobs for the boys and all that kind of shit. But realistically, trying to make a train line through the countryside, taking it through towns and cities in the UK. I mean, we are a very, very densely populated island, especially England. If you take Scotland and Wales out of the equation, England is incredibly densely populated. If you take Northern England out of the equation as well, we're even more densely populated. If you're just thinking about that area from Birmingham in the Midlands down to London, that is insanely well populated. And you're going to try and make a train line that goes from Old Oak Common to Houston. You're going to have one that goes up to Birmingham New Street Station. I mean, this is difficult. You've got to buy that land. You've got to give a lot of compulsory purchase orders out. In America, meanwhile, they're trying to build through a freaking desert. A desert. There's no one living there. It's just desert. Okay, yeah, I know there's some habitations along the way, but I mean, the fact that they can't even build one high-speed railway. Meanwhile, in China, since 2007, they have built thousands of miles of rail. So, and you go, okay, well, it can't be that easy building a railway. That there are mountains in California. There's different terrain. Desert can't be easy to build a railway through a desert. And I'm like, well, they did it back in the 1850s, mate. With some Chinese people coming from the west and from the east. There were Irish labourers who built the Trans-American Railroad. It was built without the tools that we have today. With the rails arriving by pony, for Christ's sake. I mean, and then look at China. The challenges they had to overcome building a rail line from Lhasa in Tibet all the way down to Beijing. I mean, down the steppes, that they had to build on permafrost. They had to build on freaking permafrost. You're talking about a rail line that's 5 kilometers up in the sky. And they built that. I mean, logistical challenges, engineering challenges, all that. I mean, it's stuff that America's just taken its stride, but it doesn't. And I think this is quite... My argument is going to be that if America does collapse, it's going to be not necessarily because of external factors. It's just because of, like, they fuck things up for themselves in a way that the rest of the world can look at and go, well, we've fucked up a few things ourselves. Obviously, we fucked up with HS2. We fucked up with Concorde. That was a big white elephant that ended up costing the taxpayer a lot of money. We fucked up with the DeLorean car. You know, the DeLorean car, the one that went back in time. I mean, it did go back in time, to be fair, but they were built in Northern Ireland. It was a deal struck by Margaret Thatcher. Had no idea about how to strike a deal about anything because, you know, she studied chemistry, which doesn't necessarily give you the business acumen you need to see a good deal when you see it. But there was a guy who worked for General Motors, and he left General Motors and he said, I'm going to set up my own car company making these mad fucking cars. He came up with this concept car with like gull wing doors, and he started building them in Northern Ireland. And with a massive subsidy from the UK taxpayer, an absolutely massive subsidy. Thatcher thought this would bring peace in Northern Ireland or something. The freaking DeLorean car. So, like, look, we've cocked up, but on a much smaller scale to America. You're talking about generational neglect in America right now. And one of the big problems that they've had for a very long time is that the Republican Party has just tried to block absolutely everything that has gone through their parliament system, their Congress. They just block it. They just block everything. And then when it's got to the president, if it's a Republican president, or even if it's a Democratic president who's presiding over a Republican-led House and Senate, they can just veto it, you know? They can just veto it. There's two types of veto. There's a veto where the president says, I'm not signing this, and then it goes back to the Congress, and they can have, I think it's like a 2/3 majority to get them to actually sign it or something. It's never going to happen. Then there's the pocket veto, I think it's called, where, look, I'm going off stuff that I learned studying politics at A-level 35 years ago. So I'm sorry if I'm a little bit rusty about this. Rusty on this one. Sorry, 30 years ago. I'm not that old yet. But yeah, the pocket veto is when they just don't sign it. They just go, oh, thanks for that. They just put it in a drawer. And then the congressional session runs out, and any bills that are left at the end of that session, the same way that in our country, when there's a parliamentary election is called, then any legislature that is going through the House of Commons or through the House of Lords or whatever, even if it's just about to be signed by the monarch himself, it gets dumped. It all gets dumped. And it's just like all that work, all that committee work, select committees, all that, you know, research, everything. I mean, it can be revived again in the next parliament, but you basically have to start again from scratch. Almost. Veg pie. I've said that one. Zelensky. Like I'm jumping off a cliff. Like it's got lots of E's. Okay. Zelensky. Thanks very much, Veg Pie, for that. Also, it's my cat's birthday. 9. Happy birthday to Veg Pie's cat. Happy birthday to Veg Pie's cat. I shouldn't sing, should I? Well, happy birthday. Best regards. Best regards on your kitty cat's 63rd birthday. Umka, thank you very much. Suburbia is a Ponzi scheme. When it stops growing, it degrades fast. Yeah, that could be argued. Yeah. And I think we should take a ride tonight on with the dogs, with in suburbia. Gene Lefty, is there any country you haven't been to? There's not a member of the United Nations that I haven't been to, but I haven't been to Greenland, which is part of Denmark. But I have been to the Faroe Islands 3 times. Whew, I went there in a little boat. God, it was a Faroe. I've not been to, let me think. I've not been to the ABC Islands in the Caribbean, Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. I've not been to Guadeloupe, the French islands. I've not been to the Cayman Islands, Turks and Caicos. Anguilla, I've not been to. Not been to Montserrat. Not been to Tristan da Cunha. St. Helena, Ascension Islands, Falkland Islands, French Polynesia, not been. Nui, not been. Tokelau, not been. Cook Islands, not been. Part of New Zealand. so there's little places around the world. Like I could bore you to death listing them all off, but that generally they're owned by another country or a part of another country or a dependency or a autonomous region of another country. The one that I haven't been to though, that I really, really want to go to at some point is Antarctica. Never been to Antarctica. So I've been to all the countries that exist as far as the UN is concerned, but I haven't actually been to Antarctica. So one day, my friend. Never been to Easter Island, never been to Galapagos. There's loads of places still left to go. Never been to the Canary Islands. Not been to the Canary Islands. Many of you might have been to the Canary Islands. Not been there. Not been to Sardinia or Corsica. That's quite remiss of me. And not been to the Azores. Should really fix that one. They look very nice. Paula Thomas, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. I think it's possible that the US could break up with some states applying to join Canada. I don't know. You see, I said at the start of all this when Trump won that whatever's left of America after his rampage of terror is not going to be the America that we've known in the past. But it's very difficult, even in these mad circumstances, for a country to fall apart in that way. I mean, even Somalia, which I mentioned yesterday. Somalia used to be 3 countries, right? It used to be Italian Somalia, which was what we think of as Mogadishu, that area, and Puntland, which is on the very tip of the Horn of Africa, sticks up. That's Puntland. Then there was British Somalia, which is now known as Somaliland, which is an autonomous region of Somalia. But it hasn't broken apart. It's still one country officially. They still have the one flag. They have the one team at the Olympics. They have the one team in FIFA. They don't have a separate team for Somaliland. But that used to be British Somalia, and they do their own thing. They have their own constitution. They have their own flag. They have their own... They do their own elections. They have free and fair elections in Somaliland. But no one will heed their pleas for independence from the rest of Somalia. And then you've got Djibouti. Now, Djibouti used to be French Somalia. So you had Italian Somalia, English, British Somalia, and French Somalia. Now, that did actually break off and become a separate country. So even in cases where you think if anywhere was going to break up, but then we had the Balkanization of the Balkans, which is a really weird thing. There's some nominative determinism for you, isn't it? The term balkanization was actually invented over 100 years ago. And then it means the breaking up of a country. And then the Balkans, for which this was named after, which was then Yugoslavia in 1990, broke apart into 7 constituent parts. And even that, I mean, that took a long time, and there's still a lot of bad blood about it. And obviously Serbia still has a huge problem with Kosovo being recognised. So I don't know, it could go either way. But the thing with America is it is in the Constitution that it's illegal for states to leave the Union. That's what the Civil War was about. These southern states wanted to leave the Union. And so the northern states fucking invaded them. Had a big battle. So just going back to what Trump has done. So I mentioned the nuclear deal that he tore up, and if it wasn't for that, what's happening now in Israel and Iran wouldn't be happening. And he's withdrawn from key international institutions, praising Putin and attacking his allies. And also, there's the isolationist rhetoric, which is, along with the sort of imperialist behavior, it's leading to this kind of global confusion. Trump saying he hasn't made a decision on what he wants to do on Israel and Iraq. I mean, he might have done. It's the middle of the night in America. He might be tweeting, sitting on his gold toilet, having a massive shit. I mean, he is a massive shit, which is so ironic. And then you've got the military sort of overstretch and political dysfunction. I mean, look at the history of America. They haven't won anything for years. What was the last war that America won? You can't say Korea. You can't say Korea because the Korean War's not finished. It's not over yet. There is a demilitarized zone. There is a ceasefire in place between the North and the South of Korea. Okay? America did not win that for the South. The country is split in two, and it has been for a very long time. Vietnam, no, didn't win. did not win. The Khmer, not the Khmer Rouge, sorry, the Viet Minh, or as the Americans call them, the Viet Cong, to make them sound more scary. The Viet Minh won. They won, and they changed the name of Saigon to Ho Chi Minh City. So, then we had the invasion of Iraq. Well, not the invasion of Iraq, the expelling of Iraq from Kuwait. Now, in one point of view, you could say, well, then that was a big success. They got the Iraqis out of the Iraqi forces out of Kuwait. But then it set up the stage for instability in the Middle East that would lead to the second Gulf War, or the invasion proper of Iraq, when they tried to achieve regime change, and it all kind of blew up in their face. Then you've got the way that they supported the Mujahideen in Afghanistan in the 1980s. Do you remember when the Afghan fighters were our allies? Do you remember there's a James Bond, there's a Rambo film where they're riding with the Mujahideen against the Soviets? Because the Soviets invaded Afghanistan in the 80s. They were there for about 8-9 years. And they got completely humiliated in Afghanistan, as everyone gets humiliated in Afghanistan. We could have told you that. We've faced up against the Afghans many times in the past, and always got our asses kicked. So we could have let you know. But America was successful. Anyone who's read or seen the film Charlie Wilson's War will know the fact that America supplied the Mujahideen with weapons that was facilitated through Israel, weirdly enough, and they got these weapons and they fought off the Soviet invaders. And then at the end of the book, at the end of the film, Charlie Wilson is saying, "Okay, can we get some money to rebuild the country that's on its knees?" And like, no, we'll just leave this country that's awash with AK-47s and angry young men without any parents, and we'll just leave them to it. Good luck, guys. And it's like, if America didn't win that, if America had won that and actually done what needed to be done and helped Afghanistan get to its feet, it wouldn't have had a civil war in the 90s, and the Taliban wouldn't have won that civil war. So then, America goes in 2001 after the invasion, after the attack, the 9/11 attack, and they invade Afghanistan, and they're there for 20 years, and then the Taliban win anyway. I mean, this American military intervention is just humiliation after humiliation after humiliation. I mean, let's face it, like, they got beaten in Vietnam. This was a nuclear armed power with all of the military might at its disposal. Helicopters, bombers, planes, napalm, all the weaponry you could ever want. And they got their asses kicked because they didn't know the terrain. They weren't the people of that place who had grown up in that place and knew how it worked. And it's just absolutely mind-blowing. Plum Duff, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. In honour of a thoroughly decent person, the great panel on this channel to us is all Pete's Music. Woo! Pete's Music. Woo! Have a wonderful day, pal. You are appreciated. Oh, thank you very much for the super chat, and thank you very much for giving a shout out to Pete's Music. That's very kind of you. Gareth T says, I helped demolish what was left of the starry Mostar in it. Has still since been rebuilt. You mean the bridge in Mostar? And am I thinking the right place here? Are you talking about in Bosnia and Herzegovina? Let me know. Mostar is in. I've been there. I've been to the bridge. It got rebuilt. Rambo 3, great comedy. Yeah. Remember the boot in the film also. Lovely words, Plum. Yeah, there's so much love in the chat. Jamie making a really good point here. They can't even win the war on drugs. Yeah. There's another war that they just haven't won. They thought they were going to smash the drug gangs. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? I know, because if you take out one drug cartel, if you take out the Medellin cartel, who turns up? The Cali cartel to just take all the business because people want drugs. And now so you've got this sort of international humiliation, and then you've got the domestic chaos under Trump, making global alliances unstable. And unwinding Biden's legacy of being the adults in the room, just replaced by toddlers, throwing nuclear fucking threats around. And it's just, isn't it just, I mean, and US corporations are in increasingly seen as monopolistic, extractive, rather than innovative, and companies that are trying to genuinely make the world a better place. You saw it yourself when Google decided to drop the "Don't be evil" catchphrase from their buildings. They used to have Google, and then the slogan was "Don't be evil," and then they took away the "don't." And you're seeing it with these companies that will do anything, absolutely anything, to make a little bit more profit until they're told not to do it. So they will operate sweatshops in Bangladesh. They don't give a fuck until someone tries to stop them. They'll build landmines to sell to dictators around the world to blow up their own people, or to Vladimir Putin to blow the limbs off children in Ukraine. I'm quite happy to do that until someone steps in and says, no, stop. There's no morality there. That's the thing about leaving things to the market. The market has no morality. The market doesn't care. And then you've got the dominance of the dollar being challenged at every step by the BRICS countries, which Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. But those countries can't agree on what currency they want to use. I'm sure that the European Union would like them to use the euro as a reserve currency. That would be quite handy, but I don't know if it's going to happen. Sanctions, US sanctions. Let's talk about them. Is there any effectiveness of US sanctions on Iran, on Russia, on North Korea? I mean, America is putting these mad tariffs on China, and China's just like the cat in the meme, just like sitting at the dinner table, whatever. And yeah, this is having an immediate global fallout. We are a world now without US power. We've got, Europe seems to be having a bit of identity crisis right now. It wants independence, but incapable of coordinated military or diplomatic action as a whole. Mostly because of tinkering by Putin, putting his men like Orban in Hungary and Farage here in the UK, and we as Europe, that's the UK plus the EU, we were starting to challenge Israel properly about its war crimes, but now that's floundering because there seems to be another battlefront opening up, or has opened up, and we're still tethered to NATO, but without America, NATO is a very different beast. We need either America to come into the fold, or we need a new NATO. A NATO that stands for democratic institutions around the world, democratic countries around the world, free press, free speech, all the stuff that Trump hates. We need that. And yeah, bring in Japan. Bring in Japan. It's an incredibly wealthy country with over 130 million people living there. Bring in Australia. Bring in New Zealand. Bring in Singapore if you want. I know it's a dictatorship, but and there's the worry as well about China watching all this unfold. What's happening with Israel going into Gaza and killing loads of people who are innocent, who did nothing wrong, and they're looking at that, seeing nobody doing anything about it. They're looking at Russia going into Ukraine, no one doing anything about it. Do you think that's a disincentive to start pissing around in the Spratly Islands in the South Island Sea, or to actually, bite the big one and go and invade Taiwan? I think that would be a disaster if they try to invade Taiwan, but it could happen. And don't forget, China is a nuclear-armed power. And we need to ask, what is the point of having a NATO that isn't going to abide by Article 5? Like Trump has said that if members of NATO, members of NATO, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, if they get invaded, he's actually encouraged Vladimir Putin to invade countries that are part of NATO. Plus, he wants to invade Greenland, which is part of Denmark, or it's a dependency or an overseas autonomous region of Denmark. And Denmark's a member of NATO. He's threatening to invade Canada. He's making jokes about it being the 51st state. Just stop it. Just stop it, you absolute fucking madman. And yeah, we're seeing unchecked Israeli aggression. We're seeing Iranian retaliation. And the whole thing is a massive power vacuum. Because no one's telling these countries to pack it in. In fact, Trump is actively encouraging Israel to throw more fucking missiles at Iran, and he's actively encouraging Russia to destroy, kill, maim, murder, rape people in Ukraine. Actively encouraging them because he's a fucking scumbag. And Iran accelerating its nuclear program and bringing its enrichment up to 60%, that's a direct result of Trump. Trump did that. And it might encourage, depending on how this goes, it might encourage other regional powers, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, to follow suit. Because there's a massive undermining of the nuclear non-proliferation treaty by both the US and Israel. Israel is not a signatory to it. I saw there was only like 3 countries in the world that were not signed up to the nuclear non-proliferation treaty, and it was Israel, South Sudan, which only became a country in 2011, and who's the third one? Was it North Korea? Was it North? So yeah, but I want to ask, could the fall of America be a good thing? Hollywood no longer being the sole teller of stories to the Western world opens up space for more diverse narratives coming from Korea, Nigeria, India, Iran. Fewer terrible Marvel sequels, fewer bloody DCEU films, Extended Universe, yeah, the DC Extended Universe. Oh my god. Are there any TV shows that you're waiting with bated breath for the next season of? Maybe Severance. I don't know. And yeah, no more drone-delivered democracy. We're going to democratize you. Quick, take cover. Here come the democracy bombs. Maybe we'll see more space for democratic models, because I've said before, there's lots of different flavors of democracy. There's no one size fits all in each country, each region, each state, each province, each city, each town, each village, each hamlet needs to find its own way. It needs to find its own way that it can have a democratic system that works for them. And it's not necessarily the democratic system that might work in the village down the road. It might not be the democratic system that works in the country next door. But find one that works as well as things can work. At the moment, America has exported its brand of democracy all over the world. And I've got to say, 9 times out of 10, it's been a fucking disaster because they have an executive president with loads and loads of power. Not an honorary president, not a ceremonial president, not a constitutional king or queen. No. We're going to have a president who's in charge of the fucking army. One person gets to send the army to anywhere he wants in his own country to shoot at protesters. That's fine. Head of the FBI. He gets to decide what the FBI go and investigate. He's head of the DOJ. He decides what the Department of Justice should go and investigate. And he alone can say to them, "No, don't look into my friend Epstein for raping all those children. Don't look at that. Just drop all the charges, please. Don't even." And he can give executive pardons to anyone who's guilty of a federal crime, over 1,500 violent insurrectionists. Gave them all pardons. It's too much power. He's in charge of Homeland Security. He's in charge of the Coast Guard. In charge of the Air Force and the Navy and all the submarines. And he can demand to have a fucking military parade, which was shit. But he can demand to do that. It's too much power. And so that American model, although they love to wax lyrical about it, if you ever watched the West Wing, which was like in the days when George W. Bush was president, that was like an alternative reality in which a Democrat had won the presidency, who was like, sensible and kind and compassionate, but also had some difficult, decisions to make. But they love to have that gloopy fucking music playing while they go on about how great American democracy is. I mean, it's the greatest democracy no, it's not. It's seriously not. Not even fucking close to the best democracy in the world, because you put way too much power over the lives of 330 million people in the hands of one squishy man. One stupid little tangerine tyrant. One little Cheeto Benito, which is crazy. So yeah, more different ways of thinking from different places around the world of how we think about democracy and how we think about social cohesion. That's not rammed down our throat by America. Another thing I think it would help with is history. And the knowledge of history and the understanding of history. I think it's really shit that I know more about the history of America than I do any other country, with the exception of possibly Britain. Even then, I'm not quite sure, because I don't think Britain has made as many films about itself as America has made about itself. What's the film about William the Conqueror? I don't remember watching a film about William the Conqueror. If we were America, there would be 17 different films of William the Conqueror. I've seen The Lion in Winter. It's about Henry II and Eleanor Aquitaine. I think. I can't remember. I've seen A Man for All Seasons about Thomas More. Was it? I can't even remember. Like, Henry V is about the Battle of Agincourt, I guess. Okay, cool. But it's a Shakespeare play. Not many people are going to watch that. No one's made like an action movie of it. You think about all the movies that we would have made if we were America about our history. Because every time America has done anything good or bad in history, some fuckers made a film about it. I mean, some of the things are like the bodies from the tragedy are not even fucking cold, and they're like, green light a film about this tragedy. Quick, make the tragedy. I remember being in America in 1999 and seeing on a marquee outside the theatre there, Titanic the musical. And I pissed myself laughing. I was like, that's fucking disgraceful. Like, over 1,500 people fucking died in the Titanic disaster. They made a musical about it. What the I mean, 9/11, the musical, is that coming soon? Is it? Might be. Who knows? Who fucking knows? Jesus Christ. But yeah, other countries don't get to tell their story because all of the expertise, there's not that many people who can make movies. It's a difficult business. Skilled craftspeople and artisans and actors and directors and screenplay writers who can actually write a decent screenplay, something that a lot of films aren't really based on because they start writing the screenplay after they started rolling the film, which is why so many films just make no sense at all these days. But that's nothing new. But like, they take up, and it's like me when I talk about the private school mafia taking up all the top jobs, because there's only like a set number of films that I think humanity can make in any given year. And then like all of them are like, taken up by American money, American financing. They get to make all the big blockbusters. And so we don't get the European films and the Indian films, the Pakistani films, the Gabonese films that I think that we should make. There could be some really interesting stuff out there. We'll never know, because America's cultural hegemony is just, it's insane. It's insane how much they occupy our everyday life. People talk about how men are somehow obsessed with the Roman Empire. That's a big thing, isn't it? Men being obsessed. They think about the Roman Empire 3 times a day. I don't think about the Roman Empire 3 times a day because, I'm not David Mitchell. But yeah, America. I think about America more than any other country apart from this one. We talk about it more. I know that if I put on a thumbnail on this channel, if I'm going to be talking about Trump or Elon Musk or any of the bullshit they're doing over there, and then more people are going to watch it. That's why I really like doing the agenda with Phil on Fridays, because we could just talk about British politics. That's quite nice. And so another tragedy, us leaving the EU. All the culture that we sort of said, no, we don't want that. We turned our gaze, we fixed our gaze across the Atlantic to the west, to the undying lands. Di says, £5, thank you very much. The two greatest series of the last 30 years were Edge of Darkness and Utopia. Bollocks to Hollywood. Thanks very much, Di. That's really kind of you. The Buddha Strikes Back. Yeah, that would be quite cool. They didn't have cameras for the Battle of Hastings, so they made the tapestry instead. Yeah, true. It wasn't as bad as it could have been, says Anne. Admitting that's a low bar. But yeah, I mean, America's made movies about achievements that weren't theirs. There's a film called U-571, which talks about these Americans stealing the Enigma machine, getting one intact. The Nazis were told to destroy the machine so we couldn't take them apart and see how they worked. And it was the HMS Bulldog, in reality, that managed to get one and get it back to Bletchley Park so we could take it apart and see how it works. But in this movie, it was the Americans who did it. How fucking dare they? How dare they make that film and say, oh, it was all the Americans? I mean, they could have had British actors in the same film. They could have had exactly the same film, but it was British people doing it. But no. They got to take our achievements and they're going to make it their own. And then you watch films like The Patriot or Braveheart when they try and do American history and portray the English as the big bad guys. And like, there's so many things wrong with those films from a historical point of view. And you know what? I mean, I'll let off Braveheart because it's quite a fun film, right? Patriot, it's not even a fucking fun film. It's just fucking bollocks. It doesn't even make I don't think it makes any mention of the French who basically won the independence war on behalf of America when they were fighting for their independence from Britain. No kings, they said. No kings, yeah. Reverend Kathy, thank you very much for £200. Oh my God, no, £2. We have a great poem about 1066, though. We do. Well, that's another thing as well. I mean, if you think about the big Hollywood franchises, the last God knows how long, James Bond. Let's move away from the comic book stuff, but James Bond, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. I mean, they're all British books. Fracula, which is this horrible mashup of Frankenstein and Dracula. They're British inventions. Mary Shelley and Bram Stoker. A lot of the sci-fi stuff that we have now, like based on H.G. Wells, The Time Machine, stuff like that, or maybe Jules Verne, who was French, he wasn't American, and they've taken so much of R.I.P. And think about R.I.P. Don't they put that on graves? You think about Disney. I mean, they made all of their money retelling folk stories from other countries. I think it was it American Tail? Was that even Disney? Fievel Goes West? Was that even Disney? I don't know. Pocahontas? I guess that was about American history, kind of. Whitewashed. Well, whitewashed to hell, but American history. But up to that point, all the Disney stuff that I can think of, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Pinocchio, is Italian. Yeah. Dumbo, maybe? Maybe Dumbo's American. I don't know. Someone tell me in the chat. Polish military stole an Enigma machine and shared it with French military intel after Dunkirk and shared it with us, Graham. We just needed to keep nicking the rotor wheels as Germany kept changing them. Says Simon. Judge Dredd is British, says Jamie, yeah. So's Watchmen. So is the what's it called? The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That was just the worst film ever made. Alan Moore refused to have his name on it. I don't blame him. And he's refused to be involved in any movie since then. So V for Vendetta and From Hell and stuff like that. He's like, no, don't want anything to do with these. Johnny English is English. He is. Yeah, that's true. There's a book called The Enemy Below, says Brighton and Hove, actually, which involves a Royal Navy destroyer and a U-boat. In the film, the destroyer is American. I'll still never forgive America for renaming the film Ice Cold in Alex, which is, yeah, come on, that is a great name for a film. It's a book. It was a book originally. But it's enigmatic, it's interesting. It's like, why is it called ice cold in Alex. There's someone called Alex and he's dead inside. What does this title even mean? I love it. It's just a great name for a film, for a book. In America, they called it Desert Attack because they thought that the title was too cryptic. Could you be more generic? Anyway, back to America. So we're talking about creating a space for genuine democratic models rooted in local context, which I feel very strongly about. If there's one mantra that I want you to take away from any of these discussions that we have, any of these chats, any of the monologues that go off on, it's each to their own. Like, everyone's different. That is it. Everyone's different. And what works for one person or works for one group of people might not work for someone else. And we have to get that through our thick human skulls because we find it very difficult, especially when something has been absolutely wonderful for you. And I find this difficult. I find it difficult when I see someone struggling with an Apple phone and I'm just like, sack it off. Apple phones are shit because I'm prejudiced against Apple phones. I'm prejudiced against Apple products. But they prefer it. And I need to, live and let live. That's what I need to do. And I just need to live and let live. So I'm not just talking to you about this need. I'm talking to myself as well on this matter because there are ways of living. There are democratic models. There are drugs and medicines that work for one person, doesn't work for another. There are processes. There are, going into rehab. The way that somebody works their way through rehab might be startlingly different from the way someone else manages to do it, manages to kick whatever habit it might be. You look at businesses. There's no one-size-fits-all model for business. Yeah, it gets a bit irritating when you see these CEOs turn up and go, I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and that's how I made this amazing multi-billion dollar business. Without mentioning the fact that their rich Uncle Monty gave them a £500,000 loan to get started. Interest-free. Pay me back when you're ready. Wink, wink. And so, yeah, I mean, the people see the world in different ways. And what I would like to see is more of, and I'm not great at this myself. I'm not saying I'm fucking fantastic or anything like that, because I know I get wound up and I get shitty with Brexiters and refuckers and all that lot, right? But I do feel like when it comes to a good idea, I think that a good idea should work on pretty much all points of the political spectrum. So, for an example, I'll give the abolition of the death penalty. That's a good idea for people on the left, like myself, because the death penalty is absolutely grotesquely immoral. But it's also a good thing for the people on the right, which you might not expect because people on the right never have this explaining to them. But the death penalty is really fucking expensive. It's a really expensive thing to have. Ask America how much it costs to kill someone in America. The state killing someone in America costs a fuckload of money. Because you're going to be on death row for 10, 15, 20 years. And that entire time you're going to be putting in appeal after appeal after appeal. Even if you committed the crime. To say, please don't kill me. And who pays for that court time? Who pays for that lawyer that you've got advocating on your behalf? Who pays for the judge who has to decide? Who pays for the disciplinary body or the tribunal or whatever the fuck you go to? The American taxpayer. It's cheaper to keep someone in jail for the rest of their life. Which, as we talked about with Gareth on Sunday, that was such a fascinating conversation. If you've not seen my chat with Gareth, go and have a look. It's on the live page of this channel after the show. And one thing Gav pointed out is, like, if you've got someone who's got like a whole life sentence, they're in jail in their 80s, we have to have a prison officer standing at the side of their bed. Could have two. And then they've got to do a night shift. So there's four. There's four for each elderly prisoner. What's the point? They're in the hospital. They're not going to come out. What is the point? It's fine. You've served your sentence. You've lost your life. You've spent your entire life behind bars because of that horrible thing you did. Now you're old. Why are we spending extra amounts of money? It's a daft thing, right? And I think you could explain that to someone who's on the right. I think you could explain that to someone who's on the left. I think what the left did a very, very bad job of, or anyone did a very bad job of with the Brexit vote is there were people on the left who supported Brexit because the people on the right were the Brexiters were very good at it, trying to get to the point where they could get people on the left to agree with them for this very, very right-wing fascistic thing they wanted to do, taking away people's rights in this country. Only the people like you and me, only the ordinary people sing along with the common people, not the rich, not the 7% who went to private school now that they can live there as long as possible, as long as they like, because they got the money. They got the money to pay for the visas. I saw a video, Mike Galsworthy reposted it on TikTok, and it was this poor guy. He'd been to Malta because his dad died, and he had to sort out the estate, and he was he had been decorating, and he had stayed for more than 90 days in the 180-day period. He didn't even know about it. He was told about it by a friend, and he went, "Oh shit, I better get going then." And at the airport, they arrested him. And then they said, "You're not allowed to come back for another 3 years." And he was like, "This is a British guy with a British passport, never committed a crime in his life, and he's there to sort out, settle his dad's estate." And they're like, "No, you're banned for 3 years." What, from Malta? No, from the entire Schengen area. So that's pretty much every country in the EU, bar Ireland, I think, maybe Romania, Bulgaria. No, one of them joined recently, didn't they? And it includes Norway and Switzerland. And he can't go to any of them for 3 years. He's banned for 3 years. And there's going to be loads of Brits in that situation. That's what these Brexit motherfuckers did to us. But anyway, getting off the point here. So, Brexit. When I went to a Channel 4 debate thing called Anything But Brexit, I was talking to some Brexiters in the green room. It was an auditorium, and they were very young and very posh and I realised they were right wing. They were Tories. They were Tory Brexiters, and so I didn't appeal to their better nature. Because I don't think they've got it. I didn't appeal to their angels. I don't think they've got an angel. I appealed to their basic understanding of economics, and that we're much better off being part of the EU. The benefits by far outweigh the negatives, and I had them over a barrel where they're telling me they've got to be able to get better rights for cocoa farmers in Ghana, and I'm like, how are they gonna buy our stuff? And it's as simple as that. No one had ever asked them this question before. No one had ever said to them, how are people in these countries and other places around the world going to buy our stuff? Walk me through that process. And one of the best ways to get people on side, I find, and I know it's difficult, I know that some people have just died in the wall, whatever, is just ask them questions, get their brain working, and they go, well, there's not just Ghana. I mean, Ghana's quite a poor country, and of course they're not going to buy our financial portfolios, or they're not going to buy our Nissan Qashqais. But America, and I'm like, America's incredibly protectionist. They're much bigger than us. They've got an economy that's 10 times the size of ours. Like, are they going to be, if any kind of deal with them is going to be, we're going to be on the back foot. We're going to be the junior partner. We would be the senior partner in a deal with, say, Canada, but Canada's already got a deal with the EU, and we're just having a continuation deal with the deal that we already had. Then we've got Australia, and obviously they've got a population smaller than ours, less than half of ours. And so you think, well, we could take on Australia. But here's the thing. Australia's got, they need nothing that we offer. Absolutely nothing. Not even Marmite. They have their own version of it called Vegemite. They don't need us. They live closer geographically to Japan. So if they want to buy some right-hand drive cars, they can get them from Japan. It's a lot fucking closer than what Britain is. It makes absolutely no sense to dig these materials out the ground in Africa, bring them over here to melt them down and stick them together, make a car, and then put that on a ship and send it all the way to Australia on the other side of the goddamn planet, 20,000 kilometers away. It's just bonkers. It's absolutely freaking bonkers. Sorry, 12,000. It's not that far. The argument is simplified that idiots. You need to simplify it a little bit. But yeah, and then you run out of countries. What I found with everyone I spoke to on this particular topic about Brexit is they ran out of countries very, very quickly. And they're like, what do we make that we want to sell in Japan? You're a country and you've got you're a company. What are you going to sell them? And then once you've knocked out the eight countries of the UN that are down by the IMF, regarded by the IMF as advanced economies, because we can only really sell to advanced economies. They're the economies we can sell to. Developing nations, very difficult to sell stuff to them. For one reason or another, usually the main one being poverty. We've seen this with the Indian trade deal. So we've got a trade deal with India, right? Let's just put this into perspective. The EU without the UK is about 460 million people, right? India on its own is 1.4 billion people. So you got 460 million versus 1.4 billion. So on the face of it, India has 3 times more people than live in the EU. And yet, when we left the EU, our economy took a 4% knock. And you've seen how much more will be added to our economy as a result of the trade deal that we've done with India. It's fuck all. And considering that India has 3 times the population of Europe, you would think, wouldn't you? I would think, anyway, that it would be a little bit more, but it's not. It's not. Actually, I wouldn't think that because I've been there. And I know that most people in India are, just scrabbling to keep themselves alive. Never mind thinking about, getting some financial services from Canary Wharf. It's for the birds. It's absolute. So then, who else? China. We're not going to get a good deal with China. Why would they? They're massive as well. They're 3 times bigger than the EU. And then you rapidly run out of countries. And you're like, so if you take out the countries in Europe, you take out the 8 or the advanced economies, then you take out India and China, you've got over 140 other countries. 140 other countries around the world that it's not really worth doing a trade deal with because it's not going to increase our economy that much. Well, I mean, if the hit is a 4% hit to our economy, it's not going to replace what we had with Europe. Nothing. There is nothing on this planet that can replace the trade we did with our biggest, closest, and richest trading partner, the European Union. So yeah, I think these things can be explained, not in a emotional, I don't want my rights to be taken away kind of way, necessarily to people on the right. But I think that any kind of good idea should be able to be explained and keep the vast majority of people, no matter where their political stance is, keep them happy. We have a new deal with France where we can take people back who are coming across on small boats, and we have a processing centre in Calais. Is anyone going to... I mean, I think I could do a pretty good job of convincing someone on the hard right that that's the best way to do it. I think I'll give it a go at explaining to someone trying to persuade someone on the left that that's a really good idea that, might work a little bit better than the situation we have at the moment where we've got Starmer saying he's going to smash the gangs somehow. Because, it's like whack-a-mole. You can hit one, another one's just going to pop up. Genuine democratic models, which I think is a really important point here. But also, the collapse of the petrodollar system would be a wonderful thing. I think it'd be really good because it would reduce fossil fuel subsidies and dependencies globally. we subsidize the fossil fuel industry so much, it makes my eyes water. Also, having something stuck in my throat makes my eyes water as well. Just give me a moment while I drink some coffee. Thank you. And then the potential for us to move to a more balanced transition for a green energy, for green energy, and less obstruction there from US oil lobbies. And it would mean also the end of climate sabotage. No US Republicans have been helpful in any way. In fact, they've all been a fucking roadblock to climate negotiations. If we sack them off, then we'll have a lot more say amongst ourselves. No more sabotage of UN climate deals. or IPCC reports or green tech sharing. And this could also lead to the breakup of monopolies with the economic rebalancing that would come from that. Facebook, Google, Amazon, broken up in Europe and broken up, I'm guessing, in other countries and other regions that want to break them up. It means they become less globally dominant. I saw this week that Denmark, after Copenhagen and Aarhus in Denmark moved away from Microsoft, they don't want to use Microsoft products anymore. The whole country said, no, we're not going to use Microsoft anymore because it's a monopoly and they're spying on all our shit, and we don't want it anymore. We don't see America as an ally anymore. This is Denmark, don't forget, the country that owns Greenland and has owned Greenland for over 1,000 years. But whatever. But you know, Trump wants it for some reason because he looks at a map and he goes, "Oh, I'd like that," because he's a fucking child. But also, it would allow us to look into local alternatives and increase our digital sovereignty, something that we don't really talk about enough. These Brexiters, they love going on about their sovereignty, but when it comes to energy sovereignty, when it comes to data sovereignty, and digital sovereignty, they're not interested. They're quite happy to sell their grandmother's data to the ravenous bug blatter beast of Troll. You know, they're quite happy to do that, or Palatine, as it's also known. They don't care. They don't give a shit about their data. They don't give a shit about lots of things, except, you know, foreigners that they don't like because they're racist. But yeah, and then we'll also see more sort of multipolar development aid and investment around the world. The global South can then move forward. I think in some ways the global South has been stymied by America and what America gives aid for. So I'll give an example. Under the Trump administration, they wouldn't give any aid to any countries that had anything to, well, any organizations that had anything to do with abortion. So a lot of women's care and women's healthcare organizations in sub-Saharan Africa and elsewhere had their funding cut massively because Trump came in and said, "I'm not giving you any money." Now, you might think on the surface of it, having this cut is really shit, and it is. In the short term, it is really shit. And I'll tell you why it's shit. It's shit because if someone says they're going to pay for your meal, and then you eat the meal, and then you go, "Are you going to pay for it?" And they go, "No, I was lying." And you're like, "I wouldn't have eaten that meal. I wouldn't have done that, or I would have asked someone else for the money for that meal, or I would have worked myself for the money for that meal. But you said you were going to pay for it, and now you just pulled that away." And that's what USAID has done. Well, not USAID, they're a good organization, but what Trump and Musk have done to USAID. Is that the most disgusting thing ever? Yes, it absolutely is. But in the long term, those organizations, those countries, those charities know not to trust America in the future. So they will look for other means of getting someone to pay for that meal, you know? And that'll be a steady, if you know for sure that money's coming in, you can move forward with certainty on infrastructure projects, on capital investments, which I want to see more of. I want Europe and China to invest in Africa, not take everything, not just steal everything like what we've been doing for decades, we've been doing for centuries, seeing what resources are there in Africa, what we can take. No, I want a real good, call it reparations if you like, but system in which we purposely invest in these places. And with the minimum expectation of an ROI, a minimum expectation, you know, just to build these places up and allow them to find their own feet, instead of the ridiculous situation we've got at the moment where we give a load of money to a charity and a lot of it doesn't get to the people it needs to get to. It just doesn't. And with Rory Stewart on this, we need to turn up and just give people fucking money. You want to, if you go into a village and you just give money to shop owners, they'll invest that money in the shop. They won't spend, I mean, some might spend it all on crystal meth, but most won't. Most want to better themselves. Most people want to better their lives and their circumstances and the lives of their family and friends. That's just the way we are. So yeah, so what we need is choices for countries, for the development of countries beyond the IMF, beyond the World Bank, which is American. You want something like the China's Belt and Road Initiative meeting the EU's Global Gateway. That would be fantastic. Something that actually invests in a place and not necessarily to strip them of all their resources. And this is a point that I'll make time and time again. And I'm sorry if these shows get a bit repetitive, but I always think that there might be a few people that have not seen a show before and might want to go along, might need to hear some of the stuff that I always say. But if you give people more money, if more people have money, then you make more money. Money makes money. We know this because the millionaires and the gazillionaires were born into money and they use that money to make more money. But when it comes to an economy, the worst thing you can do is austerity. The worst thing you can do is take money from people so that the pittance they have to survive is all spent on staying warm in winter, and it's all spent on food, on pot noodles, on paying the water bills, just to keep yourself alive. Because when people are just surviving, they're not living. They're certainly not thriving, and they're not buying shit they don't need. And the whole capitalist model relies on people buying shit they don't need. You can get a decent smartphone for 50 quid. You get a second-hand one for even less than that. You don't need the new iPhone, which is £900. You don't need that. You can have exactly the same experience to do the same sort of shit on another phone. You don't need that. The reason why people buy stuff they don't need, people buy expensive cars. A car is a lump of metal to get you from A to B. It doesn't need to be an expensive car. It doesn't need to be a Ferrari. It doesn't need to be a Maserati or a Bugatti or a Twatati or an Alfa Romeo. It doesn't need to be one of these fucking fancy cars. But people buy them anyway because they've got the money to do so. Personalised number plates, unnecessary. But people buy them and people make lots of money from them. And then they use that money that they've got from selling a bit of plastic with some letters on and they go and sell it. They go and buy something else. They put an extension on their house. What I don't want is all the money going to the tech bros in Silicon Valley. You don't give a fuck about me or my family or anyone else in this country. I don't give a fuck about anyone in America, never mind anyone in any other country. I don't want my money going to them. I don't want to go into Jeff Bezos. I don't want to go into Zuckerberg or Musk. I don't want them having my money. Thank you very much. I'd much rather spend it in my local community. And so the idea that we take money off people and make everyone live hand to mouth, we plunge children into poverty. And, it's like the South Park thing of like question mark, profit. It's like, just like, how does that work? How does people having less money make more money for your economy? It doesn't work like that. The more money that's sloshing around any given economy, the better that economy does. And so if we give more money to African countries, the 54 countries of Africa, 55 if you include Western Sahara, if we give more money to these countries, the more money's got to come back to us in the end. It will do. It just will do. And there's other factors here as well. More money means less instability. And there aren't sanctions against a given country or whatever. When we're saying, okay, we'll build this infrastructure, but we want to make sure that everything's above board. So your country needs to bring in rules about transparency, rules about, you could set up something where you literally bribe the government of any given country. Say, we will build this rail line for you. We'll pay for it. Build it yourself, but we'll pay for it. We'll build this bridge for you. We'll do this, right? Get that, expertise off the ground in that country. So they're not completely reliant on engineers and architects coming from elsewhere. Like what happens in a lot of states, like in the UAE. It's something that I really, it bugs me particularly because I'm very passionate about my architecture. And I feel like buildings should be designed by people from that country because I feel like a painting is a painting. It can move. A bit of digital art can move, whereas a building can't move. And I think that buildings should be an integral part of the culture of a place because they can't move. So I want things to be built that are right for where they're from. I want Aboriginal people in Australia to be designing buildings. I don't want a Danish guy to come along and build this Sydney Opera House that looks like a bunch of clitoral hoods. And I have no idea why people think it's so beautiful. It's just because it's different, I guess. But it's a Danish building. Inside, it's like a multi-story car park. It's supposed to be an opera house. The acoustics are fucking awful. There is purple carpet sellotaped to the wall, like literally just to try and deaden the sound a bit, because otherwise it's like having to do an opera in a fucking cave, because it's all concrete inside. Because the guy who designed it from Denmark, who's not from Australia, who's not connected to the Dreamtime or Aboriginal art or anything in any way, shape, or form, designed it in a weird fucking way. And they go, "Oh, this is the symbol of Australia." And I'm like, no, it's not. Aboriginal rock art, a didgeridoo, fucking boomerangs. They're a symbol of Australia. Fucking kangaroos, mate. That's a symbol of Australia. Not a building built by a Dane. And when they built Federation Square in Melbourne, if anyone's been to Melbourne and knows how to pronounce it right, it's Melbourne, not Melbourne. You can tell if someone's not been there. In Melbourne, they have Federation Square, which looks like a metal shed that's been dropped from a great height and just crumpled on the ground. Looks like it's been, it's like, oh my God, what happened? No, it's supposed to look like this. And it was there to celebrate 100 years of Federation, of Australia doing its own thing, breaking away from the, from Britain and being its own country in its own right. So who did they get to design this building? Did they get some Aboriginals? No. They got some British people to design the building that celebrated their independence from Britain. Yeah, it was a London-based architectural group. Well done. And it looks shit. They should have built a fucking park. They should have built a fucking park, because there's hardly any green spaces in the CBD. I know there's the park where they do the motor racing nearby, but it's a bit of a walk. Like in the actual the business area, the business district of Melbourne, there's like a little tiny bit of grass outside the central library, and people tend to congregate on that at like lunchtime. It's like there's a postage stamp size bit of space for people to sit on. And so I would like to see money going in to these places around the world, and I want to see investment, not just in buildings and infrastructure and all that kind of thing. I want investment in people. I want investment in education. I don't want these countries using our architects or using our engineers. I want them to get their own. And here's the thing, right? I think Star Wars makes a good point about this. I think what is with your fucking tangents, Graham? But listen, stay with me on this. It took 20 years to build the first Death Star, because it needs to get the technology up to scratch, right? Once they had the technology, they could build the second Death Star in 3 years, okay? The reason being is because they already knew how to do it. And that's the same with loads of infrastructure projects, right? If you don't have the ability to make a high-speed rail line, like what we don't in this country or what America doesn't in California, then it's going to take a very, very long time to build that rail line. But once that rail line has been built, the people who built that rail line have got the expertise of how to build a high-speed rail line. So the next one will take a fraction of the amount of time that the first one did, because you're not trying to suss it out all the time. You're not trying to get experts in from other countries to go, how do we do this? We don't know. And that's why whenever you see a kind of rollout, it always sort of trickles at first. With any kind of new technology, whether it's train lines, whether it's nuclear power, whether it's computers, whether it's AI, whatever, there's a trickle at first, and then suddenly there's a flood, because people suss out how to do it. And one of the things that we have lost, possibly because of America and the fact that, the way that buildings are built now is a very much American mentality, kind of imported the submarine base brutalism, Nazi submarine base brutalism of the 1940s, when there was a war on, they had to build things that were, thick fuck off walls of concrete that could survive, bombing from above. And then we had the Cold War, and people built nuclear bunkers, which obviously built of concrete. It's a shit building material. It's the shittest building material that has ever fucking existed. I don't want to hear about the fucking Parthenon in fucking Rome. Couldn't give a shit about it. It's a shithole. It looks like should be a multi-story car park, that building. It was falling apart. They had to restore it. They can't pretend that, oh my God, this is amazing. Look at this concrete building. It stood the test of time. No, it didn't stand the test of time. It had to be repaired. It's had to be repaired many times in its history because it's concrete, and concrete is a shit thing to build things out of. It's liquid rock. You're making stuff out of liquid fucking rock that's set in a particular pattern, shape, whatever, and it looks shit. It just looks shit. And you put rebar in it, and the rebar is supposed to not get oxidized, but it does. And along comes rust, and then it expands, and it cracks the fucking concrete. And that's why every single bridge in this country needs replacing. Every one that was built in the 1960s and 70s, everywhere in the country needs fucking replacing because it was built with this shit, right? So American mentality when it comes to building stuff is build it out of concrete, build it fast, build it cheap, knock it down in 30 years, build something else. The Las Vegas model. And unfortunately, that Las Vegas model has been exported all around the world at the detriment of cultures that have made buildings that make sense in other places around the world. I have to tell you this, right? Flat roofs never make sense. They never, ever make sense. Except, I will give one example where they might make sense. In the Atacama Desert, because it hardly ever fucking rains. Anywhere in the world that you have rain, you are fucked with a flat roof. It will leak. It will eventually leak. It is a shit idea. Do not have flat roofs. And yet, what do we see all over the world when we see these high rises going up? Flat roof. That's never going to be a problem. And then you've got countries where they have fucking monsoons. Have you ever been in a monsoon? It's like having a bucket thrown in your face. Not literal rainforest, and they got a flat roof. And you're like, are you fucking insane? Are you mad? And it's because the American model of this is the way everything should look, this is the way everything should feel, and with the export of their McDonald's and their KFC and their fucking Popeyes, whatever, this is how things should taste. This is how, burgers and French fries and Coca-Cola, this is how a soft drink should taste. Everywhere in the world, you see Coca-Cola. Or you'll see, in a country where the Coca-Cola isn't sold, you'll see a Coca-Cola knockoff. Oh, they'll smuggle in some Coca-Cola, at night. Crates of Coca-Cola coming off the ship into Syria or Cuba or North Korea. And so I want to see an end to that. I want to see an end to America's cultural dominance because I think it fucks up the culture of other countries. Why would you develop your own soft drink using fruit that grows in your country when you've got Coca-Cola? Why bother? And knowing that if you do make your own soft drink to go up against Coca-Cola, they're going to drop the price of their Coca-Cola to destroy you as a business. Because that's what they did with Virgin Cola in this country. Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola got together in the 1990s. There's an unholy union, if ever there was one, to destroy Virgin Cola. There was a time in the 1990s when it was 15p for a can of Coke because they just dropped the prices massively until they wiped Virgin Cola's profits out, and Virgin Cola collapsed because they saw the threat. So how about a world in which Budweiser and Coca-Cola and their fucking buildings and their films and their art, their cinema, all of this cultural stuff doesn't take up all the oxygen? Because if there's one thing I want to get across in this whole sort of monologue, is that America steals the cultural oxygen from the rest of us, from the rest of the world. All these American movies that are British ideas, filmed in Britain, British directors, British crew, British cast, when we could be telling our own stories. And we're telling the stories of some dickhead in America who did some dickhead fucking thing back in the day. Jamie says they reckon the Estrusht weaknesses as being a deliberate sabotage by an undercover rebel designer. Yeah, indeed. I don't want a Danish guy to come and build a Death Star. Yeah, exactly. This is the thing. Yeah. It would have been cool if the Ewoks had built a Death Star out of wood. That would have been quite cool. I've not heard of Curtis Yarvin, but I'm not living in Midgar. No, Curtis Yarvin, he's one of the worst. He's one of the Peter Thiel gobshites, isn't he? Surely a flat roof in the desert will collect sand on top of it. Yeah, true. Okay, There you go. But the thing is with the Atacama Desert, it's not too sandy. When you think of a desert, you tend to think of the Sahara with the dunes. Most deserts aren't duney. Most deserts have got a surprising amount of foliage and bushes growing. They all look dead, but then when it rains once in every blue moon, they come to life for one evening. Witchy Wisdom says we have a living roof that is flat and it is awesome. 50 years and no issues, coping well. The rain deluges we seem to get now. Oh well, that's good. Canary Wharf has a pointy roof. Yeah. When I'm in charge, you're not going to be able to build anything above the 5th floor. Malta has a good soft drink called Kinney. Iranian cola is gorgeous, I'm told. Fanta was developed because Coca-Cola wasn't playing with the Nazis. But it wasn't playing with the Nazis, but then it owned Fanta, which was playing with the Nazis. Roof tilers probably don't want theirs work on a pitch roof on top of a tower block. Yeah, I don't think we should have tower blocks. I think tower blocks are disgusting. I think they're abominations. There's a certain level of arrogance to do with a high rise. I feel high rise office block or tower block or whatever. It's like the people inside get a nice view, but the rest of us have to look at a fucking tower block, which I always think of. I mean, I'll give the Chrysler Tower and the Empire State Building a let. I'll give them, yeah, okay. I'll allow it. But the rest of the shit they built in New York, fucking awful. I've said before, like the Twin Towers. If that had been the Empire State Building that had been hit by a plane, they would have rebuilt it exactly as it was, just like Notre Dame. They would have just rebuilt it exactly down to the micromillimeter of the building that was once there. But the Twin Towers are fucking ugly as fuck. I mean, it's a tragedy what happened. 3,000 Americans were killed, and people were killed, and that was awful. But if we just sort of put the tragedy to one side for a moment, just those two buildings, they architecturally they weren't worth shit. That's why they didn't rebuild them. I guarantee they would have rebuilt the Chrysler Tower. If the Statue of Liberty had been hit, they would have rebuilt the Statue of Liberty. If the White House had been hit, they would have rebuilt the White House. They wouldn't have put like a tower block in its place. They would have rebuilt the White House exactly as it was. I mean, you saw this in World War II when Parliament got bombed and they rebuilt it. They rebuilt the Chamber of Commons, even though it wasn't big enough to fit all the MPs, and they rebuilt it exactly as it was. So that was a bit mad, but that's another story. But having said all this, let's be real. There are very real dangers of a world where America isn't the power that it was. Where I don't think it's going to crumble. I don't think it's going to balkanize necessarily. But it's just never going to. I don't feel like it's ever going to be back where it was. Not in my lifetime, anyway. Who fills the vacuum? China, not exactly democratic. Russia, laughable. I mean. This is a country that has an economy that's just doing shite at the moment. They have a GDP per capita. They're somewhere in the region of Grenada on the old charts, for the GDP per capita. The only one that I can see that has any real legs in this situation to fill that vacuum is the EU, and we're not part of it anymore because Farage and his Russian handlers told Farage to get us out. The Russian handlers of Boris Johnson told us to get us out as well. So, this risks. There's also the risk of global instability, more so than ever. No dominant peacekeeping force if NATO stops being a thing, and the UN needs restructuring. The UN is arguably powerless without US cooperation or funding. The US do pay a lot of money towards the UN. The United Nations building is in New York. It's a disgusting looking building. It's a big tower block. With a flat roof pub. And you could argue that rogue states are more likely to act with impunity without America being there as a sort of to stand there and say, "Oh, don't do that." But then again, haven't rogue states been acting with impunity since forever? Like, when did they stop acting with impunity? Did America step in to stop the massacre in Rwanda in 1994? No, it fucking didn't. Did they stop the war in Sierra Leone? No, they fucking didn't. They weren't fucking interested. Did they do much to stop the situation in Somalia? No. No, they fucking just let it happen. They just went, okay, well, lead them to it, shall we? And you talk about rogue states. I mean, Russia has invaded Ukraine, and America's done fuck all about it, really. It's reluctantly given them some weapons, but that's about it. And so, yeah, I don't really see much of a difference if that happens. I think with countries that actually do give a fuck about other places around the world, I think you might see more interaction, more pulling up states that are running around acting with impunity, pulling them up by the the collar and saying, "Oh, you fucking stop it." And also, there's if America does go the way it looks like it's going to go, I mean, if the dollar collapses, that's going to cause a global recession while we scramble to fill that void. And that's why, all in all, I don't want this to happen. I'm saying, it'd be great for cultural reasons, but economic reasons. When our economy is on the rocks, hundreds of thousands of children in this country are plunged into poverty. There's a direct correlation between our economy and the poverty levels in this country. The better the economy is doing, the lower the poverty levels. It's as simple as that. We'll see the collapse of global supply chains, with America going out the window, and developing countries that are reliant on remittances for people who work in America and send money home. Countries that are reliant on trade with America, Mexico, Canada, most of their trade is with America. Investment would suffer, or would it? Would people say, "Well, we've got the money. Money can move anywhere now. Maybe I'll invest in another country. Maybe I'll invest somewhere but America." So the sort of question, like, where would this end? Like, we're imagining this a bit of a thought experiment. What would the world look like without America? We'd have sort of a multipolar world, wouldn't we? You'd have the EU, China, the BRICS countries, African countries that they would arguably rise in influence. Global cooperation would be reconfigured, and maybe it could be reconfigured around, not just trade, but also peacekeeping and the climate. Don't forget, there are troops that are sent to other countries in, say, like ECOWAS, which is the trade group in East Africa. West Africa, because it begins with an E. ECOWAS. It's the Economic Association of West African States, I think, something like that. In West Africa, they do send in, if there's a coup going on, or there's some kind of military intervention happening, they've been known to send troops, ECOWAS troops, into another country and sort the stuff out for themselves. And if we have more of that kind of regional help, instead of these countries being sort of atomized and played off against each other by Western countries, that could be a good thing. That could definitely be a good thing. Increased regional cooperation and increased global cooperation. But then, that would be the best possible outcome. But then you've got the fact that we could lead to more global instability, conflicts erupting in power vacuums in the Middle East, in Taiwan, Eastern Europe, the aristocrats, autocrats thriving in this environment, and climate action stalling as a result of America not being a thing anymore. I don't know. It actually might be a good thing, but it also might be a bad thing. And then the third option is, what if America doesn't go this way? Which, is another option. What if it regroups, but it's wounded, Trumpism burns out, MAGA dies. But trust is broken in America. And once that trust is broken, it takes a long time to get that trust back, as Britain is learning now with the EU. Allies hedge their bets, and the US just becomes one ally amongst many, and we don't rely on it for our sovereignty anymore, which is a weird thing to do, to rely on another country to ensure your own sovereignty. So, what would you miss if America just stopped being the America that we know of? I'm not saying it's going to stop being a country. I mean, with the global force that it is at the moment. What will you miss stuff? Will you think it's a better place? Let me know in the chat. What do you think might get worse? What do you think might get better? I'm pretty sure the Romans will have something to say about pizzas being American. Christopher says Coca-Cola was blocked from exporting the Coke concentrate from the US, so the German local HQ came up with orange concentrate and called it Fanta. Yep, because they already had the carbonization process, the bottling process set up. Coke basically sell the syrup, not exactly the bottles. That is true. Architects are insane. There's an Egyptian temple building on Marshall Street in Leeds. Nice, but it looks so out of place amongst red brick mills. Yeah. Oh, it doesn't say anything. It doesn't say anything about Leeds. It doesn't tell the story about Leeds. One of the other reasons why I hate concrete, not just Leeds because it's the shittest material to build things out of, is it's got no story. It's got no tale. It's got no history. So go to Durham Cathedral, right? And it's 900 years old. Well, they started building it 900 years ago. It's been used in lots of movies. It was used in the first couple of Harry Potter movies. It was also used in Thor Ragnarok. It was used in the Avengers Endgame. It was used in Avengers Endgame to double for Asgard, whatever it's called, the place where the gods live. And you go to the back of the cathedral, you go behind the altar, and there are these amazing, what looks like green marble pillars, right? And they're quite narrow pillars. And you can see all of the fossils in them. Like, if you like fossils, if you're interested in fossils, you've got all these mad fossils trapped in this polished black stone. It looks incredible. That stone tells a story. That stone came from a quarry near here in Durham. And you could look at that. You could investigate it. There's a whole, you'd be able to find out what era it came from. What those creatures are inside. Maybe it came from the Cretaceous period. I don't fucking know. But there's a story there. With wood, when you build with wood, even if it's fucking pine and it's like, it's kind of everyday wood, but it tells a story. If you build with oak, or you build with beech, or you build with ash or something else, you can suss out where that wood came from. You can suss out how old it was, what forest it grew. You might even be able to suss out who fucking planted it originally. I mean, there's a story behind it. But glass, concrete, no story, no history, nothing behind it. It's just some sand and some fucking cement and whatever else they put into it, and they just pour it into a mold, put some rebar in it, and let it go solid. It's just, I don't know, there's no romance in it, there's no history, it's just a thing. And I understand it's necessary in a wartime situation, but to build stuff shit and quickly. But in the lives that we live today, I just don't see its necessity. And yeah, I am fully aware, someone might tell me in the chat, that the beautiful Liverpool Anglican Cathedral is actually concrete. And the Liverpool Liver building is actually concrete. It's clad in red sandstone and granite, respectively, but the actual insides are concrete because they were both built in the 20th century. Both 20th century buildings. And that's the 20th century material. But here's the thing. The concrete is on the inside. So there's two advantages there. One, it's not exposed to the elements because concrete does not like the elements and it does not age well. Two, you don't have to fucking see it because it's clad in stone. You could do that. But what we do when we build buildings now, and I see this a lot with the luxury student accommodation in cities around the country, we build them out of breeze blocks, and then they put like some cladding on the outside, probably flammable. And they go, oh, that looks good. It's like plastic. They put like plastic on the outside. What do they call it? Composite. Looks shite. It just looks fucking shite. Or they do that thing, which I think is even worse, where I've seen these big, sort of large tiles that have a brick design on them, and they put the brick design in. It's not real bricks. It's just It's like a pretend brick. It's like you're building a movie set or something. It's not real. They're not actual bricks. I'm like, why? Do we not have the money? Do we not have the time? Do we not have the expertise to do these things nicely? Make these things look boss? Yeah. So I hate the American mentality when it comes to architecture. Everything's got to look the same. They have a very communist attitude to architecture. Every single Pizza Hut or McDonald's in America has to look the same. Everything's it's all a commodity, isn't it? Those suburbs in America where all the houses are exactly the same, with the same picket fence and the same length of grass and the same trees. It's just, yeah, that freaks me out. I don't know. It freaks me out. Jerry Anson's series like Thunderbirds and Stingray would have to be redubbed to have fewer American accents, lol. Captain Coconut, look, we knew what the Americans were like after the war. We were supposed to share our jet tech with each other. We shared and then had to wait 62 years to get theirs. Don't do a deal with them Yanks. Yeah, and they'll sabotage you. They sabotaged Concorde. Look, there's an argument that Concorde wasn't a great idea at the best of times, but it was designed so people could fly from Europe, from Paris or London to LA. That was the plan. People were going to fly to LA, and then they decided, no, not going to allow that. It's not allowed to fly over land. So there was only a couple of airports in America on the East Coast that Concorde could fly to because it was too noisy. This is Americans complaining about the noise. Do you see the irony there? Have you ever met an American? An American complaining about the noise? Oh my God. It's like a Scouser complaining about all the good music. Yeah, it's, you know, and the mad thing is, just to bring this all sort of full circle, talking about what life would be like without America, culturally, economically, socially, politically. Trump didn't just damage American democracy. You know, he's shaken the entire world order and left a void that nobody quite knows how to fill at the moment. And for my money, okay, and I know I'm not particularly rich, but for my money, I would say I think it's time for the rest of the world, especially in Europe and the UK, to stop us waiting. We need to stop waiting for America to lead. You know, we need to start figuring out how to lead for ourselves. We've coasted for too long, and in the long run, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this is a good thing that we're, finally pulling ourselves away from America and going, no, there's another way to do this, a better way to do this. There's the model, the original concept for the Liverpool Cathedral. It would have been fucking huge. Yeah, that's the Lutyens Cathedral, the Catholic cathedral. They only built the crypt of that, and then the actual cathedral that we ended up getting was built in like 3 years in the 60s, and I think it looks shite. I think it looks shite inside. I think it looks shite outside. We affectionately call it Paddy's Wigwam. Yeah, it's a thing, I guess. Doesn't say anything about Liverpool. The stone that clads the Anglican Cathedral is clad in red sandstone. It's a particular type of stone that we get from Liverpool. We've dug this stone out of the ground. There's a quarry right next to the cathedral where some of this stone was quarried. We dug this quarry, we blasted, we chipped away. We chipped this stuff out of the ground, and then we built a building with it. And I see that as more of a way of embedding our cultural heritage than any other way. Going green too expensive, nothing to the price we'll pay in the long term, says L. Going green isn't expensive at all. Going green is way, way cheaper. If I want to floor anyone who's going on about how much they love their internal combustion engine, I just say it costs us £3 to get to Liverpool on our electric car. £3. That's how much the fuel costs for our electric car to get to Liverpool from Durham. £3 fucking pounds. We're on an Octopus Energy thing, and I know not everyone can get it at the moment, but we charge up at the house, and yeah, £3 fucking pounds, and that just blows any argument against going green out the water, throws it out the window, defenestrates that motherfucker, like a Russian general who has enraged Putin in some way. Brought on Putin's ill will. It's now a listed building, right? Well, it always was. It was a grade 2 star, wasn't it? Now it's a grade 1 listed building. It's fine. It's fine. I don't like the Radio City Tower in Liverpool. I think it's disgusting. I think it's horrible. It looks like a piece of shit. But it's there. It's there. I'm not saying we should knock it down, but it was a chimney to a shitty fucking shopping centre that looked like a big pile of arse. Always did look like a big pile of arse. And we had to put a big screen in front of it, like there's a big video screen, to cover the fact that they thought that the town planners of the 60s, who I hate, decided it'd be a really good idea to step out of Lime Street Station. The first thing you see is a multi-storey car park out of concrete. That's all covered in soot. Yeah, cool. The original design for Liverpool's Roman Catholic Cathedral looked like megalomania. It would have been huge. It would have been absolutely massive. It was kind of crazy. It's a facade. The Liver building is built on stilts over the Mersey, says Martin. You're absolutely right. You can go into the basement of the Liver buildings and it's water. There's water below you. The sea is below you. The river Mersey is below you. So those 3 buildings in Liverpool, the Port of Liverpool building, the Cunard building, and the Royal Liver building, they were built in, imagine that the square or the rectangular docks that we have all the way along the Mersey River. So if you think about the middle of the Albert Dock in Liverpool, from this morning, if you've never been there, it's like a square, isn't it? With the building around at the outside. So that's what used to be there at the pier head. And they built buildings in the 3 bits where the water was. And those are the 3 buildings that make up the 3 graces in Liverpool. But actually, the road that separates them, separated by roads, that's a causeway, technically, because it's built on stilts. Underneath there is water. It's like fucking Venice, mate, which is kind of crazy. There you go. But there's a just next to the 3 graces, there's this beautiful ventilation shaft. Beautiful ventilation shaft. It was built in the 1920s when they built the Mersey Tunnel. And at the time, Egyptology was huge because they just found the tomb of Tutankhamun. And so it's covered in these like Art Deco style Egyptian motifs. And it looks really fucking cool. And it's really interesting to see that. And that looks really fucking cool, right? And then a little bit longer the river as you go out towards the sea, there's the ventilation shaft for the new tunnel, or the new air tunnel that was built in the 60s. It was a piece of shit that leaks like a motherfucker, called the Kingsway. And that tunnel, that ventilation shaft just looks like a big concrete load of nonsense. It just looks shit. It just looks really, really shit. And it's like, even back then, in the 1920s, they went, right, we've got to build a ventilation shaft. That's you got to make it look nice. And then they just stopped after the war. They just thought, fuck it, we're all going to die in a nuclear holocaust anyway. What's the point? So they just stopped building things that look nice, which breaks my heart. And from I'd say the 1950s onwards, possibly, maybe the 1960s, but definitely starts in the 50s. There's not many buildings that I would protect, that I would, just put, join a human ring of people to stop the bulldozers coming to take down. I would not weep a single tear to see the Radio City Tower in Liverpool go, or the Beecham Tower in Manchester. Beecham Tower in Manchester. I think it's just fucking disgusting. Jesus, and you're forced to see it. That's why I don't like the arrogance of it. You're forced to see it from anywhere. The people inside, they get a nice view in the penthouse that they paid $1 million for, but the rest of us, we've got to look at this bloody abomination. We've got to look at Europe's biggest eyesore every day on the way to work. Stockport's town centre is built over the River Mersey. It runs under the brutalist 60s shopping precinct. You'll love it. Yeah, no, I've been there. I know. Nick says that the deflationary effects of AI in the coming years, making the cost of producing goods and services far cheaper, should reduce reliance on wealthy US consumers to drive the global economy. Maybe. I don't understand why. I mean, maybe services might be cheaper, but what? Why would producing goods be cheaper with AI? Just walk me through that one. We probably can't in the number of letters you're allowed in a comment, but the only expense is the hit the oil companies will get, so they should use that money in transitioning the ones who don't get no bailouts. That's a good idea. Melbourne has Flinders Street Station, and it's gorgeous. Yeah, It absolutely is. That is a beautiful, beautiful building, and it's very fitting. It feels very, very fitting. But unfortunately, Federation Square is literally over the road from it, and that just looks very ill-fitting. It looks like a bag of shite. Yeah, Melbourne's got some fucking fantastic buildings. It's got some beautiful old buildings. Bluestone is the building material there, and I always feel like make the stuff out the local material. Don't make it out of metal. Metal. That's what Flinders Street. Not Flinders Street. Federation Square. It's made of fucking metal, and it leaks. It leaks like a motherfucker. It's leaked from the start. That it was from the very beginning. Lee says they've thrown up loads of bland skyscrapers in the centre of Manchester in the past few years. With more planned, it's barely recognisable now. Not in a good way. No. I've got a lot of problems with Manchester at the best of times, mate, because I know you're from that neck of the woods, but I went to uni in Manchester. I just find it such a depressing city. It's one of the most depressing cities in the world. That Mancunian Way motorway running through the middle of it is disgusting, and I hate so many of even the Victorian stuff. It feels very oppressive. These big old brick buildings that, there's not a lot of light and joy about them. It's one of the reasons why I prefer the Georgian stuff in Liverpool, because the Georgian stuff, it's all about light. It was all about a big fucking window everywhere. And those Georgian townhouses are still incredible today and still being used today for all kinds of stuff. Mixed purpose. You can use them as a home. You can use them as a bar. You can use them as a barber shop. You can use them as a doctor's surgery. Pretty much anything you want to use them for. Whereas a Barrett home is a Barrett home. It's always going to be a Barrett home. You're not going to be able to turn it into a shop anytime soon. I like Melbourne Central. I miss Melbourne. I haven't been to Melbourne now for 13 years, and I do miss it. I do miss this. I used to live there, don't you know? Kind of, as long as my visa allowed. I'm going to head over to the papers because I realise I haven't done the paper review. Big show today. Talking about a lot of stuff. World of that America. Lots of tangents. Hope you like the tangents. If you like the tangents, let me know in the chat. Preferably with super chats. We've got Cheer We Go Again. Money. Okay. Fury at welfare reforms. PIP cut to catastrophe. 800,000 set to suffer. And universal credit and carers allowance also hit. It is going to be a disaster. Labour was last night accused of turning its back on the sick and disabled at cruel welfare cuts. I don't think they're wrong. The charity Scope said this bill will be catastrophic for disabled people. I don't think they're wrong. Caitlin Moran there. They always use the same picture of Caitlin Moran. With her arched eyebrows. Ooh, hello. Don't know what she's talking about. She's doing a celebrity watch. Is that like a Trump watch? Can you buy a watch? Picnic time. 10 foods the nutritionist avoids. I don't give a fuck what a nutritionist offers or tells me to do. Being a nutritionist is not a protected job title. Being a dietitian is a protected job title. I can't call myself a dietitian. I can call myself a nutritionist. And I think I will. I'm a nutritionist, and so is my wife. And my cat. Late billions over budget. Now HS trains are set to run slow. Britain's high-speed rail could open at reduced speeds to cut costs. Well, that kind of makes sense. Just cut the costs. I don't care. It was never about the speed to me. It was always about getting the number of people that you needed. What's it called? People. Capacity. That's the word. It's always about capacity. There's a horrible story here about a woman dying of rabies after a holiday brush with a stray dog. And as someone who's travelled a lot, can I just say, get your fucking vaccine. Get your fucking vaccine injections. Get your vaccines. Get your rabies vaccines before you go anywhere where there's lots and lots of rabies. Because rabies, once it shows symptoms, is a death sentence. Like once it's full blown, there's no going back. You just die. That is it. And when you are traveling, top tip, stay away from stray animals. Stay away from cats. Stay away from dogs, especially dogs. Don't go up to them and go, oh, a stray dog. Oh, I love dogs. Oh, come on, lick my face. Because you can get rabies from a dog licking your face. Don't let dogs lick your face. Just don't let, just please. Please. And people go, oh, God, you know, only a few people die of rabies. Yeah, but they still die when they didn't have to. They didn't need to be dead. There's the gorgeous Jodie Comer, fellow Scouser, mate of mine, from 28 months, 28 years, 28 decades later, with Aaron Taylor Johnson and Ralph Fiennes at the premiere last night, looking radiant as ever. And then we've got Britain could support US to strike Iran from the air. Starmer calls Cobra meeting to weigh options. I really hope that we don't go down that road. Thank you very much. I don't want to join America in another daft military adventure into another insane, stupid, unpopular, and unwinnable war. Okay, so I may do, I may not. Trump keeps the world waiting on US joining war. What a twat. Iran warns of irreparable damage if Washington sends support to Israel. Universities barred from blanket bans on protests. University in England will no longer be able to enforce blanket bans on student protests under new guidance, which urges a very strong approach to permitting lawful speech on campus. So there you go. The guidance says academics should not be pressured to support political views. Protests should not be restricted for supporting legal viewpoints. Students and staff should not be encouraged to report others for lawful speech. Universities must secure freedom of speech for visiting speakers. Fuck off. Fuck off. Why? So I can turn up, right? So that it's going to be a duty now of Manchester University. They get me in, right, to talk about my travels around the world, right? And I turn up in front of a bunch of students, and now I can say, this university's fucking shit, mate. This is the worst university in the world. It is a shithole. Everywhere's crap. It costs too much. Manchester's a really depressing city. Why are you even here? See that guy at the back there who's a lecturer? He's crap. He's rubbish. He couldn't lecture his way out of a wet paper bag. Do you want me to do that? Am I allowed to do that now? Am I allowed to just go to an institution and slag off the very institution that I've been invited to? And they can't do anything about it? They can't yank me off the stage with a little hook and bring the hook out, hook them off the stage? What a fucking nonsense. Free speech. I mean, all the people that go on about free speech, they never fucking went to university, mate. Calm down. Daily Star, yeah, we had the same picture that we had yesterday, or was it the day before? With the jaunty hat, with the woman wears hat. Woman wears hat. And then we've got Frankie is in Binner's enclosure. The race fans blasted Ascot bosses after bins were dumped near a statue of famous jockey Frankie the Toy. Okay. Oh my God, they've got another picture of the woman with the hat on. Another one. It's the same picture. They use this. Oh, this is from the Daily Mail. God. Can you tell how much we drink just by looking at our faces? I can tell how much Nadine Dorries drinks. Benefits bill is on course to rocket by £18 billion a year. That's the same as the entire police budget. Well, you know what? If these motherfuckers in the Daily Mail hadn't told us to leave the EU, we would have that money. We spent 39 million just leaving. Just to leave, to pay off the debts we owed to the EU. £39 billion. And now they're saying that it's going to rocket by £18 billion a year. Well, we could have paid for at least 2 years of that if we hadn't left the EU. And years to come, because our economy wouldn't have taken a 4 to 5% hit on where it could be now. Trump here, I may do, I may not. He's taunting Iran over airstrikes. How fucking responsible, how grown up. Kate Ascot, my missus, guy in a hat. Guy wore a hat. Guy wore a silly hat. I'm the only one allowed to wear a silly hat around here. Can you fuck off? Assisted dying law would be a wonderful present for mum. Dane Esther's law calls on MPs to give us a choice over our death. A bit of a weird present, that, isn't it? Present, you get to die. Jodie Kidd, £5 a pint. It had better be a good one. Obviously, Jodie's left Liverpool to go to London and just seeing how expensive everything is. Rochdale grooming gang cannot be deported. Pakistan is refusing to take back the ringleaders of the Rochdale grooming scandal after they renounced their citizenship. It's going to be difficult. Carol's Ascot thriller as Kate misses out. I don't even know who that is. Carol Middleton. Mother of the... Fucking hell, the mother-in-law of the guy who lives at number 32. Fucking she's mother-in-law. She's on the front cover. Herma, war on Iran may be illegal. Controversial Attorney General warns PM. Britain must limit role to protecting allies. Couldn't agree more, my friend. Couldn't agree more. Next up, we got the eye paper. I was stuck in a cycle of eat, sleep, rave, repeat. Wow, that sounds cool. Edith Bowman. I didn't know she was that exciting. She always sort of came across as a bit boring on the radio. Didn't she go out with the guy from Snow Patrol? She went out with Gary Lightbody, I think. There you go, celebrity goss from 20 years ago. Millions set for 150 energy pound bills discount as Miliband takes on critics. UK tries to delay NATO 5% defence pledge as Trump threatens defiant Iranian leader. So we're trying to, delay. The UK tries to delay NATO 5% defence, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, yeah. Which reminds me of celebrities. It's Kate Nash. Kate Nash is playing Glastonbury. And it reminded me that she played Glastonbury in 2008. And I was there. And I watched her perform on stage. And I was with her then boyfriend, who was the lead singer of The Cribs. Remember The Cribs? Got his name now. There you go. There's a blast from the past for you. That's really fucking random. I think I was there with one of my rude flags. Yes, but Graham, it's not about her wearing a hat because Kate gets to choose when she works. Well, that's true. Trump says jump. Starmer says how high? Yeah, indeed. Indeed, Kirsty. L, are you taking rabies or what if it's like if you go to America? You're talking rabies or what it's like? Sorry, talking rabies. Both. Get vaccinated. Get inoculated against rabies. And don't go around petting stray dogs. Jimmy says, it breaks my heart when I took photos of the Victorian Library in Brum. Don't get me started on the Victorian bullring. Yeah, well, they knocked a load of brilliant shit down, didn't they, to build absolute garbage. They've got that big metal slug now in the middle. The bullring now is a big metal slug. Is it by New Street Station? New Street Station is fucking disgusting. Like I think New Street Station is my least favourite station in the country, and Victoria Station in Manchester gives it a bit of a run for the money, and Euston Station in London, that's a horrible station. Oh my god, they knocked down the original Euston Station and the Euston Arch to just build some I don't know, it looked like a fucking office, a 1960s office block. One of the worst crimes that they committed in the 1950s and 60s, just knocking down so much great old stuff. You know, Pancras Station, you know, the big hotel that was designed by Giles Gilbert Scott's grandfather, George Gilbert Scott. That is just, it's where they did the wannabe video for the Spice Girls. Fun facts with Graham Hughes. That is such an incredible building. It is so beautiful, and he wants to knock it down. He wants to knock it down. He wants to let it go derelict and knock it down. In Australia, one can call themselves a counsellor, but not a psychologist. Yep. Protected species they are. You can't call yourself a doctor. You can't call yourself a police officer. Vaccination against America. Coming to America 3, the cancelled journey. Fucking sent home. I reserve the right to wear a fedora. Fair enough. We all adore a fedora. See what I did there? Lee says, I went to a meeting at my kid's school the other day. Someone had written, Stockport isn't Manchester. That's some graffiti I won't object to. True. Okay, so I'm gonna toodle off now. I've been yakking on for over 2 hours. Yeah, that's pretty good, isn't it? 2 hours. How much have we got in Super Chat? So we should have a look at the Super Chat fund. I should do like a little thing that gives me a Super Chat fund. £36.44. That's all right, isn't it, for morning's work? Now, I have got a shitload to do today, which is one of the reasons why I did a bit of a bumper show for you this morning, because I don't think that I'm going to be in a position to do the show that I wanted to do this evening. I might be with a capital M for with a capital M for might. I might be around to do a show this evening, so please subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell notification icon, and if I decide to do a show later on, if I can do a show later on, then I'll let you know, okay? But if I can, I will. If I can't, I won't. Otherwise, I will definitely see you tomorrow morning, God willing, tomorrow at 9 o'clock for another morning brew. And then we've got the agenda tomorrow as well at 1 o'clock. And then at 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night, we have the Friday night social. So please join us for all that, all those shenanigans. It's going to be a bloody good laugh, I hope. And Lee Corn says, bloody hell, is that the time? Graham likes to have it on. Well, what can I say? I can say, give us a like. Give us a like on the way out. That's all I can say. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all the chat. Thanks for the super chats. Keep the channel alive. And until next time, hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.